Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's top 10 Kickstarters of the month. And before I jump into this, I do have a Kickstarter of my own, Slice of Life. It's about an anime character that comes to life and falls in love with a high school cheerleader. I also do Kickstarter consulting, so if you want to better your game at Kickstarter, especially from a PR angle, bettering your page, contact me and we will chat. Now, let's also jump into some honorable mentions. I have some friends that have Kickstarters right now, so I want to mention those before we get into the top 10. And first is actually a Kickstarter client, and this is Terminus Veil. Love this project page. Really nice thumbnail. It's about a group of security guards trying to stop a robbery. So also a fun hightail action book. Also moving on to Rook and Knight. If you are a fan of Batman and Robin, this is the indie version of that. Definitely has a fun dynamic, and like I said, if you kind of like the DC type storytelling, that's the type of book you get for this one. All right, moving on to Vixen the Hunter, Patchand. You know, he has some wonderful Kickstarters, and VIXX is one of them. And what I love is the hunter aspect of this one. So we get to see a fantasy element, but then also their connection to these fantastical animals, and the visuals are really fun for that. And you obviously is promised to have a lot of action as well. Moving on to, this is an acronym. It's HISMWTC, and Other Tales of My Freshman Year. It's a college book, and it's by Charlie Stickney, also a wonderful creator on Kickstarter. And anytime you see his name, you should back his projects, because he has such quality books. And this is a more sexy, serious title. A lot of his sexier titles are more fantasy driven. This is more grounded, about a professor who has an escort club, and the student kind of getting drawn into that. And also great thumbnail, great artwork for this as well. All right, moving on to the last honorable mention, then we'll get into the top 10, and that is Spider-Squirrel and Trash Panda, Titan Size Special. We got Charlie, other Charlie, doing this project. And also, I'm in this project. So this is also a special superhero book, and I got to write within Charlie's universe, and it was such a pleasure to write a character there. My story is about this girl who's like part of this Canadian X-Men, who goes to her father's funeral, and obviously there's a lot of drama that comes with it, including maybe the return of a certain member of the family who was the black sheep. So it was a lot of fun, like I said, to work in that world. And there's some other wonderful creators there, and if you're just looking for, again, fun action superhero stuff, you should check out this product, and Spider-Squirrel in general. Now let's move on to the top 10. Number 10 for me is The Few and Cursed issue 9. I love a big round number or I guess in this regard, odd number in Kickstarter, because what you don't get to see as much on Kickstarter is these ongoing sagas, or something that goes up to all the way to issue 9, a familiar franchise. You do get a lot of issue 1s, and also a lot of miniseries or a lot of graphic novels. So it's kind of cool to see something go for as far as A Few and Cursed has. And if you like post-apocalyptic Western strong female leads, you should go check this one out. Also moving on to Mr. Lovenstein Presents Feelings. It really is exactly what it sounds like in the title. It's comic book strips about feelings, and you know, who doesn't want to explore the complicated feelings of feelings? So that's definitely one to put on the list. Moving on to number 8, which is Saving Supervillains, and this is a manga. You know, I love seeing the more additions of manga onto the platform, because obviously there's a ton of comics on Kickstarter, but manga also has a place on there as well. And what's cool about this one is actually based on novels, and I think that's a great way to adapt, to try to see it in a visual way into, again, not just a comic, but then going into the manga route, which really does fit more of this anime style, where it's about this guy who used to be a villain, and what happens with life after you've gone through this course of being a villain. And of course there's a character that shows up that kind of changes his point of view and his journey, where he just want to be a normal person. That's number 8 for me. Number 7 is Olympus High issue 1. It follows obviously mythical gods, and you know, when you expect Olympus High, you expect you're just following the teenage characters, but from what it sounds like in the title, you're actually following the teacher, the biology teacher, which I think is a different angle to take for a young adult type story. I also like they're adding the public domain elements of mythology as well, and I thought the artwork was pretty solid for it as well. Moving on to number 6, which is Trigger Girl, issue 6. If you see Jimmy Palmiotti's name, Amanda Connor, another great creative team you should be checking out on Kickstarter. They put out a lot of wonderful books, and this is a very actiony, sexy art book where we get to see this assassin who also so happens to have DNA of animals and human DNA, and it just seems like a fun romp. And again, they always put out some wonderful products, and a great thumbnail for this one as well. Moving on to number 5, which is the 6 Gun Deluxe Omnibus Library Edition. Honestly, I haven't read the 6 Gun in like 10 years, but this book has been around for so long. That's why I mentioned that, because it's just a book that, it was really one of the first indies I remember reading in trade. Like, I read a lot of like single issues, but I remember being like, oh, I heard this is good, let me check it out. And it was a wonderful book. And now all these years later, this cult classic coming back on a platform like Kickstarter and collecting it in a wonderful package like a library edition, I think is great. And I'm curious to see if they'll continue the franchise, continue the story after this. And I just like when we get to see the marriage of, you know, an indie comic creator. A comic creator has been doing it for a long time, wants to do it by themselves, or you know, comic creator wants to work with publisher, and all happening in the same month on Kickstarter, because it's just such a wonderful platform like that. All right, moving on to number 4, which is the Cherry Omnibus. This is a 40th anniversary edition. What really struck me for this one is that we definitely get to see a lot of sexy books on Kickstarter, but I didn't know about this comic book, and it was cool to see something that was underground find another life. You know, this was a popular book back in the day. I never had heard about it before, and now, you know, how indie comics have changed, it's interesting. There was just such an underground pipeline of zines and zines, I guess, where you get to see how comics are created back in the 80s and 90s. How did they put it in people's hands, and now how that route of indie comics have changed, and you can utilize the tool like Kickstarter to get this book into even more hands 40 years later. All right, moving on to number 3, which is Out of Style, a gorgeous all new art book. So I think this is a combination of art book and a comic, and I just really love the art style. It's just like a slice of life story about these 3 girls living life, and I believe there's also some Muslim characters here as well, and it just looked like a fun book. I love, like I said, I love the style for this one. Sometimes you really just want a slice of life story to read, and Kickstarter is a great place to have that. Maybe you don't get to see as much in the direct market. All right, moving on to number 2, The After Death, book 1, and this has a kind of Charlie Brown feel to it, especially the style of strip, or the style of the comic strip, and I just like the concept. It was a lot of fun, where it's these 2 ghosts with literally like a sheet over their head type ghosts, about how do they live life after they've died, and you know, after you die, do you still have problems? Like, what is life after that? And it explores the issues of life after it all. So I just thought it was a really fun concept, and also brought this kind of retro throwback to it as well, with the style of storytelling. All right, moving on to number 1, which is the Loaf part 1, and this kind of has more of a manga style, also kind of has an older 90s style to it, so I guess I'm on a nostalgia kick for this top 10 list. But I love the style. Like I said, it looked really different, and it just looked like a fun little cute story about this baker who makes this bread, who ends up becoming like a cat magical animal loaf of bread, and I'm like, that's such a fun concept. Kind of has an anime tone to it, a manga tone, but it feels light, it's comedic, and it was just something very different. I like a good food story, so that definitely caught my interest. So those are my top 10 Kickstarters of the month. Let me know in the comments below, what are the books you're backing right now? What are the books you're most looking forward to? I'll be back next month. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one.